2. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the channel. It's good to be with you all this evening. I have tonight, or this evening, for this evening's program, I have with us a very, very special guest. This is his second time with us, our beloved Dr. Yusuf Malik Frederick, who the last time we had him on, we were introducing him to our audience, but also mentioning his book that was forthcoming at the time, but it's out now. I love Islam, but I'm tired of Muslims. How spiritual abuse and racial trauma intersect to cause psychological distress among African American Muslims. Now, Doctor, before I even bring you in, it's important to get that whole title because, as we were
Yes.
just talking about, there's some controversy. There has been a lot of, I would say, robust discussion about the first part of the title, but there's a whole title. And it's for this reason I brought this is my Masjid Allah shirt that I was gifted. I was in
Alhamdulillah.
Philadelphia. The brothers up there, Brother Michael Rashid, gave me this because you will be there. What's the date?
I will be there on the when is that? I'll be there on the 8th and the 9th
Of May.
Of May. Yes, the
Okay.
8th and the 9th of May.
So if you all are in the Philadelphia area, surrounding area, please come check the good doctor out. If you haven't purchased his book, it is doing very well. I want to let you explain. It's doing very well on Amazon. I have to give credit. As I mentioned before, I had originally got introduced to you through Mustafa Brent, who is in
Yes.
Baltimore. On
Yeah.
their Facebook page, they posted a lecture on Facebook. They had some clips going around, and I put in the comments, well, hey, how could I get in contact with you? I was mentioning you as in the third person. And he said, well, look, he DM'd me. He said, look, tell him I sent you, so on and so forth. So I do give him his credit because when I met you, then you and I began to talk off stage. And then that's when we talked about the African American Islamic Conference. And
Yes.
I called
Yes.
Imam Amin and said, well, look, I have this brother, Dr. Yusuf. He wants to join. And then what ended up happening, he invited you on his show. And you were already scheduled to be here, but you ended up on that show. And then you came to the conference, did your presentation, very influential or impactful. You came back on this show. So we have you back here for part 2. And it's good to I really want to give our brother, I haven't even met Mustafa in person before, but I have to give him credit
Great
for
guy.
his,
Great guy. Wonderful imam, doing a great job at Masjid al-Haq.
Masjid
And
al-Haq,
I've known Mustafa for many, many years. Former firefighter, captain of the fire department there in East Orange, former councilman.
Yes.
Yeah, just a good, solid guy.
And I think it's interesting because just the interconnectedness of our communities, and it's good. I'm personally in favor of explaining history. I like to give credit where credit is due and explain history. I don't want to pop up and say, hey, this Dr. Frederick is someone that I found, or he's my, something. That's not,
Yeah.
that's just our way as a group.
Yes.
And that's just what makes my heart feel satisfied when we tell we kind of give due credit, etc. But in any event, today we want to kind of pick up from where we left off in our last discussion. But before doing that, I really would like for you to explain. I mean, how is everything going so far with the release of the book? The sort of what's going on the internet, the discussion about the book. Share with us what's going on, good doctor.
Yeah, well, alhamdulillah. Thank you so much, Brother Imam, for having me back on your platform. It's been a pleasure, first to talk with you on your show, as you mentioned, then to meet you in person in Atlantic City and to have intermittent discussions in the interim and be back with you here today. So I appreciate your graciousness and your professionalism in inviting me back to continue this important conversation. So how has it been going? It's been a whirlwind. I mean, when I set off to write this book, it was as a result of 2 years of research for my PhD dissertation. It was not, this is not a novel. This, this is not something that just occurred to me or
Right.
some personal experience that I decided to write about. This is a scholarly work that, alhamdulillah, um, has been um, has been duplicated in scholarly articles such as the International Research Journal. My my work is featured there. My work is also featured in the International Journal of Research in Social
Alhamdulillah.
Sciences. And so this is a scholarly work that I engaged upon and decided to turn into a book. And the reason why it came out that way is simply because in doing the research, I found that there was a dearth or there was a scarcity of information in the research literature concerning African American Muslims. There was, you know, less than 2% of information in the scholarly field relating to or regarding African American Muslims. There was nothing that addressed, there was an entire gap as it relates to the intersection of spiritual abuse and racialized trauma. And so the impetus of this book, the core of this book, is trauma studies. Okay. This book is not about like how you feel about Muslims or whether or not the book is about the trauma response of African American Muslims as they intersect with spiritual abuse and previous racialized trauma. And some of those responses are, I love Islam, but I'm tired of Muslims. And we had a population sample of almost 300, 285 African American Muslims across the country, mainly on the Eastern Seaboard, from New York to Atlanta, and even all the way down on the West Coast as far as Los Angeles. In fact, we offered a nominal gift as people were registering to do the surveys. We offered a nominal gift of $250 in a drawing to see who would win that. And the winner came from Phoenix, Arizona, right? And so it's a large cross section of people. So for those people who believe that this is about Philadelphia or this is about Muslims in your community, you really misunderstand, right? This is about Muslims across the length and breadth of the United States. And our book happened to be the #1 release on Amazon in Islamic social sciences, and has climbed to #10 on their bestsellers list. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. And for those of you that are interested, I haven't received a dime from this. So the book is listed for $30. I think the hardcover is like $35. I think for every book sold, I get maybe like $11, something like that. I mean, certainly, I'm not going to get rich by this, but we want to get the information of the research out to our community, and that is our concern. And alhamdulillah, so far, thanks to people like you and your audiences, and as we said before, Imam Mustafa, Sheikh Amin from Atlantic City, and others.
Mhm.
We have had an opportunity to share their platform and to share their audiences. And also Imam Shadid Muhammad. He was one of the first
Mm.
individuals who actually put me on his stage
Oh,
to
okay.
talk about this. Yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
I don't want to forget him at all. He actually
Sure.
invited me uh, to his conference,
Oh, I
which
didn't
was
know that. Okay.
yeah, which was my first Islamic conference
Wow.
in 32 years, and he allowed me to talk about this work as he thought that this work was very important himself, and gave me an opportunity to share it. So I'd like to
Okay.
thank everyone and for the success of the book thus far.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that. I don't know him. I know some people who know him, and I'm aware. I haven't really even listened to him as much, but I know people who listen to him, and the what I get is that he deals a lot with like relationship. He doesn't just
Yeah,
come from. He seems more like a I don't have a better term for it, but more of a dynamic slash free thinker, like outside the box. He's not just teaching.
yeah, yeah. Imam Shadid is young.
Yeah,
When I say young, he's in his 40s, and he has had a very unique experience, but not so unique that it's different from yours or mine. He
mhm.
is from the hood. He's from Jersey, from East Orange, had a reversion experience. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah,
Became Muslim, went overseas and studied, and prepared himself. And he's a well-rounded guy, but his focus, his niche, is the family system
yeah. That's what it seems
within
like.
the Muslim household. And he's done a very, very good job with that. And we are grateful to him for the opportunity that he himself has been able to afford us as well.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah, that's important. So I want to really, in that context, kind of pick up with where we left off last time. Um, you were sharing certain, I guess I would say cases, study cases that that you do take up in the book, and you were really drawing upon just certain conclusions, or offering or sharing certain conclusions that you have drawn from your research. But you did mention yourself, and we just didn't have the time, about the need to really look at solutions, because it's very easy. And I mean, I think, I'm sure you're aware of this. It's very easy for us to kind of just get into a mode where our platform or our ministry or whatever we call it is like pointing out the problems.
Hmm.
It's equally, if not more, important to point out how to fix the problems. You know what I'm saying? So I do want to give somewhat of a setup, though, to it, and I want to kind of go back a little bit. I want to start by asking you, when you look at like I'm thinking about the Muslim African American community.
Yes.
Um, Even what you just mentioned, like, I know you're in Georgia now. I mean, I worked at the Atlanta Masjid of Al Islam for almost 10 years. I'm in DC. I'm still in between DC and Atlanta. My community is the community of Imam W.D. Muhammad. He was the leader of that community. But when you go to Atlantic City, like I'm just using these persons that we named, I mean, Muhammad, that's a community there. Mustafa in Baltimore, Shadid Muhammad, like you just gave us history. And where are they at now? Is he in
Uh,
Jersey now?
no, Shadid is from New Jersey, but he is in Delaware.
Delaware. So
Um,
let's take
yeah,
Delaware, Baltimore, Atlanta, Atlantic City. And these are different people. Like I don't think Imam Amin Muhammad studied where Shadid Muhammad did and vice versa.
no,
And I don't think
no,
that they studied where I studied.
correct.
However, our congregation that we're speaking to, they're the same people.
Yes.
Black.
Yeah,
So
we talking to black folks.
we're talking to black folk.
Yeah.
So, and when you look at that dynamic, when you look at that fact, I'm thinking about two dynamics. One is the family, and the second is the community. Uh, obviously there are other, to use the expression, other points of intersection, but I want to start with family, and then I want to talk about community. Um, Based upon what you have in the book, what do you think is the main challenge to the African American Muslim, or the Muslim African American family, based upon your research and your continued observations?
Well, that's a big question. Let me answer it like this. The African American family is a microcosm of the African American community. And as such, we have similar pain points. I'll just call them pain points. The first pain point, which is addressed in my study, is racialized trauma. That pain point is the context from which every African American speaks. That is his milieu. That is his environment. That is his socialized construct. He is indivisible from his environment. Okay? He is a part of the environment, and in many ways, he is an expression of that environment. And so we start with that pain point. We start with the pain point that the African American is unique in his social construction and dynamic. He is also unique in his psychological construction and dynamic. And in fact, his social and psychological construction was the focus of the dominant society for over 400 years. It was that focus that allowed the dominant society and the dominant culture to shape this man and this woman to be able to create and form and mold a certain psychology within a certain people for a certain purpose. And that purpose obviously was slavery, to serve the mass culture. Okay. And so that guy, that man, that woman was molded within that psychology, within that social culture, within that social environment. That, in fact, is the crucible in which he was made. So that's on the one side. Let's take our primordial man, Malcolm X, in terms of the Muslim man that we are discussing. Let's take that guy in terms of as our example, okay? He came from a street life, as most of us did. I know I did, growing up in New York. And he had a conversion experience. He had a spiritual awakening, okay? Knowing the Black man and the Black woman, we have a spiritual inclination within us, okay, that is natural. In Islam, it's called the fitra, right? But this is, we take pride in that part of us, right? And so Malcolm X had a spiritual awakening. In that spiritual awakening, because that awakening occurred within a certain environment, namely the Nation of Islam, he followed that tradition. What was interesting in that tradition for the masses of African Americans, what was interesting in that tradition was that that tradition, regardless of what you think about it, and I'm not passing judgment, I'm not endorsing, I'm not doing any of that. I'm just giving a socialized and psychological history now, right?
Yeah.
So that training and that that doctrine was cleaning up neighborhoods, cleaning up families, cleaning up the drug dealers, cleaning up the street walkers, cleaning up the dope peddlers, and putting back together again the Black family unit with structure and with discipline, and then giving them a modus operandi, telling them, hey, now you are clean, do for self. Okay, pull yourself up. The Marcus Garvey motif, rise up, Black man, right? And so Malcolm preached that gospel, okay? He became more and more enlightened, okay? He accepted Sunni Islam, more traditional, more orthodox Islam. But the interesting thing with Malcolm was Malcolm did not drink the Kool-Aid altogether.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that, he took the religious doctrine, but did not buy into the political influence of Saudi Arabia, did not buy in to the heritage of being Arabized.
Yeah.
Okay. Malcolm took the spirituality, but still recognized his Blackness, still recognized his uniqueness, still recognized his American roots, and still recognized the sociological and psychological plight of his people. And he still knew, like Naim Akbar said, that we needed to break the psychological chains of slavery.
You know, Doc, I'm sorry, but I just, that's so overlooked. Like, it's just said, like, Malcolm made this transformation without really acknowledging those points you just made. I'm going to actually clip that, but go ahead. I'm sorry. I had to just say that.
Those are the points.
Yeah.
Those are the points, because those are the important points to see. That is the je ne sais quoi. That is the thing that made Malcolm Malcolm. Right. And so he recognized the authenticity of the Quran. He recognized the beauty of Islam. He recognized the truth of Islam. However, he also recognized that it needed to be applied in a very unique way for a unique condition to a unique people. Right. And so that was his mission until his dying day, right? But that family system, that whole discipline, that whole construct, that whole struggle that led Malcolm in that direction, what happened to that? Here's what happened to that. Now we get into the 70s and the 80s, and we are in the 70s, and in the 70s, there's all kinds of stuff happening. In the 70s, there's the Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud. There's the Black Power movement. There is the death of Elijah Muhammad. There is the emergence of his son, Waris Dean, in the mid to late 70s. There is the Iranian Revolution in Iran in 1979. There is the return from Vietnam by the Blacks and the Black soldiers. So now, and in 1971, Richard Nixon decided to come up with the theory of the war on drugs.
Yeah.
So you have all that going on, and now you have this war on drugs. So there's an assault on Black people. Most of the Black leaders that we recognize as Black leaders, from Malcolm to Martin to all of those guys, are being killed, and others are dying a natural death, like Elijah Muhammad. And so, and those people who were the street leaders, okay, you know, the gangsters and the Bumpy Johnsons and those kinds of people who would bring the turkeys to the courtyard in the
Yeah, yeah.
projects, they were getting locked up. They were getting taken off the streets. So there was a vacuum. There was a leadership vacuum in Black America, and the powers that be were concerned that this death of this Elijah guy and this emergence of these almost 1 million people, way more than 700,000 Black people who were disciplined and who were walking in the shoes and in the shadow of Malcolm. Now you have the Iranian Revolution going on overseas, and there was a concern by the COINTELPRO government that we had at the time that, God forbid, that these people get this Islam and just go crazy.
Right.
So we need to kind of orchestrate so that they can be appeased, that they can chill out, that they can become moderate and calm, so that, of course, we can control them. So all of a sudden now, the Saudis now comes to the United States. They come into Philadelphia, they come into New Jersey, and they say, hey, here's what's happening. We're going to give all of you free education. We're going to teach you the right Islam, okay? And you all can come, all of these, whosoever will, can come, and we'll teach you the right way. And so they take groups and groups and groups of people, and they indoctrinate them. Unfortunately, most of these people didn't do it like Malcolm. They didn't take just the Sunni, they didn't take just the spirituality, but they took the spirituality, they took the Arabization, they took the politicalization, they drank the whole Kool-Aid and added more sugar to it and a little bit of ice, because we like it sweet. And they drank it and they brought it to our communities. And now they told these young men, hey, guess what? Y'all can have 4 wives. Y'all can do it as much as you want to do it. Y'all are not Black, because there's no blackness, there's no whiteness, there's only Islam, and there's no racism now. So the white man is not the devil, he's your brother. And even though what's going on right now with J. Edgar Hoover and this and that, they're all your brothers. Love them, turn the other cheek, and all that kind of stuff. And these brothers and sisters, mostly the brothers, they went buck wild. And now, Sheikh, you look at the family that Malcolm left. Look at the family structure that was back there in the 70s. Look at that family structure and look at our people today.
Yeah.
You got a 22-year-old and a 23-year-old young girl done been married 2 times, 3 times. Okay, already.
Yeah.
Got babies. The daddy ain't there. The daddy has now, he's got 2 other wives, right? And his children are being raised by welfare because she's on Section 8. Even a couple of the wives he's got is on Section 8, right? He's selling oil somewhere on 125th, right? It's our kids. Our kids, look at the news, bro. Just look at the news. When you hear the news of, you know, this murder, that shooting, that bank robbery, is always a Kareem, a Rashad. Our kids have identity fragmentation. They are not solidified and deep rooted in their blackness, in their Americanness. They're wearing these pieces of cloth. They're calling them, izars and this and that, and they have no than they say, I'm Muslim now, but there's no depth to that. There is no real depth to it. It's an identity, but that's it. But it's fragmented from everything else in terms of a responsible human being, or a father, or a son, or an uncle, or a daughter, or a wife, or a mother. And so our community now is all over the place. No discipline, no nothing. And look, if you disagree with me, I want you to just tell me where you're from and tell me what's going on in your neighborhood, what's going on in your community, right? And so when I looked at all of that, I, in my research, wanted to get some answers. I wanted to find out what the heck happened. What happened? What was this disconnect? And so what I found was that the spiritualizing of our communities gave rise to a phenomenon called spiritual abuse, which is the misuse.
When you say the spiritualizing of our community, are you talking about in this the coming into Islam as you just laid it out? That
Yes.
particular, okay.
Yes, the coming into Islam and the Islamizing of everything without the right or proper practical application to our situation here in America. And so we have individuals and leaders who are misusing religious authority, these individuals and institutions, to control or to manipulate or to coerce behavior for a particular purpose. So now you have a home. You have a man, black man. They are, as they say, they are Muslims now. Okay. So now he tells her she can't go out after dark. She can't go out after Maghrib. And he quotes a hadith that says, she has to stay home. He's the protector of the woman, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Yeah. She goes out because the baby needs milk. She goes out. Okay. She comes back. Because of this same spiritualization, he beats her. And he quotes a hadith that says, I can beat you lightly. Okay. Based on the hadith. No isnad, no chain of narration, no grading of the hadith, whether it's sahih, whether it's da'if, it's weak or anything. He just throws that spirituality out there. Okay. Then later on that night, after the kids are at bed, he calls her to his bed. And she says, well, I'm not feeling like it because, my lip is all busted up. Okay. And I don't want to go to bed with you. What does he do? He quotes another hadith that the angels will be mad at her all night if she does not come to bed with her husband, and that her husband has rights upon her, and that she has an obligation to satisfy his needs.
Yeah.
Now, these are not fake examples, like I said to you before.
Yeah.
My population sample was almost 300 people. And by the way, 51% of those were men, not women. 51% of those were men. And from the women I interviewed, from the women who I interviewed, all of those women were on some sort of medication. And we'll get to the problem that we are trying to heal before we get into healing our communities, because we've got to know, well, what are we healing? What is the problem?
Right. What's the issue? Right.
What's the issue? Right? So in the example with that man and that woman in the home that are Muslim, and what's going on in that home now, with every step, with every incident, with every example I gave, there was a spiritual reason as to why that brother or sister could not do what she wanted to do. That, my friend, is spiritual abuse.
And
because I'm using the Quran and the Sunnah. I'm using the spiritualization of the deen, and I'm actually misusing it in order to coerce or to get a certain behavioral result.
And I was just adding, as I'm listening to you, there's children watching these things.
Let's not even start that yet, Imam. You said that because you've been an imam.
Yeah.
You've heard the complaints.
Yeah.
So now there are children watching this. What do you think they are learning? Right. What do you think little Muhammad is learning? What do you think little Khadijah is learning? Right? Khadijah is learning fear. She's learning how to kowtow. She's learning submission. She's learning don't talk back. She's learning, if I want to get along, I need to listen and be quiet. If I don't want to get hurt. And Muhammad is learning how to be dominant. He's learning how to run his house. He's learning what it takes to be a man. He's learning how to do all of these things. They are internalizing everything.
So I have a question then. Because you compared it, you led with, the Black experience, and you started with Malcolm as sort of this archetype of the Black Muslim man and how he was able to take the spirituality, say, yes, Islam is the direction we should go in, it's the way we should go. But he kept connection with, awareness of his identity as a Black man in a particular context, meaning then that this religion has to be applied to this context. What do you say, however, to the argument that, hey, we're upon correct belief now? So all of these things you're talking about are social, but in the nation, though there was structure and order and all of this, it was kufr, it was disbelief. And that's the thing that Allah does not, it was shirk. It wasn't just kufr, it was shirk. And this is the thing that Allah does not forgive. So though we are all over the place now, as you say, at least we're on correct belief. God is happy with us.
I don't know about any of that, because let me tell you, Allahu Alam, I am not, again, and I'll repeat, I am not endorsing any nation of Islam. I was never a part of the nation, even though I'm 65 years old. So I was there when those things were happening. I saw it firsthand. I don't have to read it in a book, right?
Yeah.
What I'm saying to you is that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam talked about the fly, and he says, in the fly there is harm, but there's also healing. If it gets in your drink, if one wing gets in the drink, dip it so that the other wing gets in, so that you can apply the healing. Okay. So, yes, the when you look at the creed or the akida of the NOI at that time, it's undeniable that it's suspect. And I can even say, as far as I'm concerned, that it is undeniable that it's shirk. That is my personal belief.
Yeah.
But we are not talking about its theology. That is a different subject. I would leave that to the sheikhs. Let them discuss that. I am talking about the sociology and the psychology of what was being built and what Imam Warithdin Muhammad tried to sustain, because he got rid, in his opinion, of what was bad, and he kept, in his opinion, what was good in his methodology.
Yeah.
And you are, on this show, Exhibit A of what he kept, right? Because you
Yeah.
are continuing his legacy. So obviously, you are upon what is correct, I would hope, right? So
According to some.
you obviously kept what was good and you forbade what was bad. So it can be done, but what we are on the correct akida, for those of us who are upon the correct akida, um, 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 yes, yes, on this day, Allah had completed upon us his religion. And the only religion that will be acceptable to Allah is the religion of Islam. We are all on that page. I'm not talking about the religion. This is not a religious discussion. Pay attention, please. This is not a religious discussion. This is a discussion that has religious implications, but this is a sociological, psycho-spiritual discussion, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that goes to how, because it's a form of coping, but is also a form of harm.
Right.
Okay. It is a form of healing, but it's also a form of harm. And for the African American, in many instances, it is a form of harm, but not just in our community. I want to make this clear, because I'm receiving calls from the Pakistani community,
Yeah.
from
It's there.
all other types of communities, and in fact, trust and believe, the stuff I'm hearing in those communities make the stuff that's going on in our communities seems like child's play.
And I asked you that because I made a very controversial statement. The last time I was, no, maybe the time before last, I was in Philadelphia, like roughly in within a month's time, 2 times within a month's time. But I made the observation that's very controversial, and I said, all things considered, when we take these areas where there are a huge amount of African American Sunni Muslims, whatever they consider themselves to be, um, if that same number was Nation of Islam people in its classical expression, these cities would actually be in better shape. These neighborhoods, um, the 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 like, and this is no lie. Uh, I have been to like events and whatever. The mayor hosts a religious whatever, and it's the Nation brother who's the now they're not a perfect people for sure. I'm not making that argument,
Right.
but the brother, he's the most clean. He's the most respectful. He's the most, like, out of all of the Muslims that's there, the most disciplined. Like it radiates. Like there's no way to miss it unless you're just blind.
Right.
Um, and it stands to reason, like, if in many of these cities there were 20, 40, 100,000 Nation people, all things considered, we wouldn't have, it wouldn't be the Kareems and the Muhammads, like you said on the news, shooting up with. Now, that's controversial because the belief and I'm saying this is the argument. I'm standing in the seat of the one that's making the argument. Well, it doesn't matter because they're not upon correct belief. And I think this transitions us into a much more deep argument regarding what really matters with God.
Yeah, and again, that is a theological issue in terms of what matters with God, and if there are people listening that wants to put themselves in the seat of God and pass judgment, then be my guest. I'm going to stay clear away from that. What I have to go on is empirical research and evidence. If you have something else, then let us compare notes, right? Because I've got the record of 2 years of research, and so that's what I'm going on. What I'm saying to you is that I have seen the suicide notes from the woman. I have heard the brothers who said that they were sitting on the Masella and was threatened with a weapon at Juma, right? I have interviewed people, right, who are saying these things. You know what I mean? The Wali, in order to marry this girl, asked me for $10,000, not as a dowry for her, but for him.
So let me ask you this, just to move, because I think you mentioned this last time, but I'm hearing you say it indirectly. It seems to be the case that you locate a huge bulk of the weight of the problem on the men, the brothers.
No,
okay.
I think that the bulk of the problem from an empirical standpoint is on the men. I am not doing anything. I am just reporting the analysis. I think the bulk is on the men. And why not? Why shouldn't it be? Allah named him to be the Khalifa. The buck stops with him. He is responsible for the family. At least so he says. He is responsible for the home. So he says. He's the imam of the house. He's the head of the household, right? The buck stops with him, right? I can't now point to my wife, tell you, go talk to my wife. She's in charge. Go talk to my son. He's in charge. No, I have to take responsibility as to what's going on in the state of my family. I have to take responsibility for that. Now, am I saying it's all on the men? Of course not. That's ridiculous.
Right? No, but that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is like what you've actually said. Like, you can't go outside. I'll beat you. Or I do beat you. Now come to bed. I'm saying it seems like your data is showing not like who should take responsibility, but empirically, you have discovered that it's men as the ones committing X, Y, and Z. Okay.
Primarily.
Yes,
primarily. And however, as I said before, 51% of the people who engaged in this study, who participated in this study, were men. And there were a large swath of men. And by the way, the demographics that I had in my study were not welfare recipients or uneducated people and all of this kind of stuff. When you look at, I can turn to the page to the demographics of the study. I think it's also in the book, but 25% of the people in this study had more than a master's degree. That's 1/4 of the people. These were educated people. 1/4 of the people in this study made over $100,000, right? There was a very small percentage of this study that only had a high school education. Most people in this study had a college degree or better, and the large swath of the people were making over $50,000, $60,000 a year. So this was a very high profile, high income worth demographic. And it just so happened, I mean, I didn't like choose, these people. These are people who volunteered for the study at random across the country. And so what the analysis shows is what it shows. I mean, who the shoe fit, let them wear it, right? I mean, there's something in research called reflexivity. Reflexivity is when a researcher has a particular bias that he is able to put his bias on the shelf. It's called bracketing, which is a part of reflexivity, and with several of these questions and several of this analysis, I had to actively, in my field notes, show that I feel a kind of way about this. So I'm making it clear that I am feeling a little bias here, and I'm going to bracket this over here, right? So with good research, there is reflexivity, there's bracketing, but the important thing in this research, Imam, is that this is a mixed method study. Right. This is not a research where I went and was just interviewing people. In fact, if you read the book has the interview protocol that was used. The book has the questions that was asked, right? So there was a particular interview protocol that was monitored, okay? In addition to that, all the survey questions that were asked is in the book for both the spiritual abuse aspect and for the racialized trauma aspect. And these were these were done in a double-blind format, which is an empirical research methodology that says, I don't know who is asking the question, I don't know who is answering the question, and it's all blind. Both the person asking and the person answering, it's double blind. They are not seeing each other. They don't know what's going on. It's being done anonymously. And so these questions and answers were done from a statistical level in terms of the survey. So people lie, but numbers don't lie. So they were done on that level. And then they were also done on a phenomenological level where questions were asked and answers were given. And these questions and answers were interpreted in line with the statistics, right? So there was what you call triangulation, where the statistics had to match up to the questions, that had to match up with the answer, that had to match up with what the analysis showed, so that you can have a total picture. And when you had all of that, then the analysis and the results showed what it showed. That is not to say that the women did not or don't have responsibility as an equal partner in the home, but you've got to be honest here. When it comes to what happens in the masjid and what happens in the home, there is a gender deficiency for the woman. I mean, there is a patriarchal, male-dominated approach with religion, period. Even more so in Islam, right? So we have our roles, and within our our defined roles, there is certain roles in leadership in the masjid, and there's certain roles within the home, and the female gender comes out where it comes out in that dynamic.
So I guess really that's connected to my next question. Beyond the fact of the role that the men are just naturally put in, or even if it's not natural, but the role that men are in, why are the men, from your, like, considering the whole context of the African American history, why are the men doing these things? What makes a man beat his wife and then say, let's have sex?
Because hurt people, right? We talked about the unique nature of the African American individual, man and woman. We talked about the historical trauma. We talked about the emotional trauma. Okay. Ellen Myers called it minority stress. Okay. And this is one of the noted trauma specialists in trauma research that founded the theory of minority stress theory in 2003. And he said that his theory postulates that there are two bases for minority stress. There is one that is called proximal stress, and there's another that's called distal stress. The distal stress is stress that comes from that is external, stress that comes from the outside, okay, that people put on us, be it, police brutality, economic stress on the job, or finding a job, or housing stress, okay, finding a place to live, or medical access stress. I can't get the procedure I need to get to, or peniological stress. I mean, stress with, the Black man being hunted and the Black man being an endangered species.
Yeah.
Right. So these are all external stresses or distal distresses. Then there's proximal stresses that comes internally, right? Because there is all of this stuff that goes on the outside, all of this trauma that occurs on the outside, has an impact on the psyche on the inside. Right. That's why people get depressed. That's why they get stressed out. That's why they have, a lot of anxiety. That's why these things occur, because now you are internalizing your stress. You are internalizing your stigma. So you have a low self-esteem, or you are not really comfortable doing certain things as a Black man, especially if you have a record. Okay, you feel stigmatized, you feel disrespected, you feel a certain kind of way, right? It's interesting, just as you were talking about the online response for this book, okay, a lot of people who are from Philadelphia, a lot of men, they are responding hostile as a result of the book. And guess what? None of them. And I asked them, have you read it? No, well, I haven't read it, but just from why you want someone, and they are telling others this, why you want someone to tell you what's wrong with you, these new guys, they're coming around. New guys, bro, I'm 65 years old. You talking about a new guy. Okay, I've been Muslim over 30 years, bro. You know what I'm saying? So I send these people my number, and say, listen, call me. You want to have a discussion? We can talk about it, mano a mano. We can handle this anyhow you want to handle it, because I ain't never been scared. Right? But the interesting thing is, you have a book and all of a sudden you become enraged, you become hostile, you become aggressive. Well, what do you think that is, bro? Like the nervous reaction, the neuropsychological reaction of trauma is fight, flight, okay, or freeze. And the Philly brothers come out with the fight response automatically. And the interesting is, I'm looking at the online comments and I'm smiling because they don't even realize that their illness is on display. Their illness is on display. You hear me? They don't know me. I don't know them. They haven't read the book. Why are you so angry, bro? Well, I wasn't angry. I was just saying, well, listen to yourself. Listen to your response. Look at your jaws clenching. Look at your fists clenching. You are typing in all caps, bruh. You are shouting online. You understand?
All right.
Having 4 and 5 exclamation points, over a literary work, right? So this niggerization of Islam, right? And I say of Islam because after you do all of this, you saying Aki and you saying all this and you saying mashallah and inshallah and all of this stuff. So you identifying as Muslim, but you also identifying as Cedric the Entertainer when he said, I am from I wish a nigga would type philosophy, right? I just wish somebody would. You just walking around wishing somebody would do something to get a reaction out of you. And this is the black man's experience. This is his neurological experience that a lot of times is unbeknown to him.
Yeah.
This is his wiring.
Yeah, for sure.
This is wiring. You know that. You're a black man out here. You know that. Right?
Yeah, that's how we relate.
It's how we relate. It's how we relate. And so we have to take responsibility for that, Imam. We have to take responsibility for that. And so in answer to your question, this is that guy. This is that guy who always feels like he's being dissed, he is being disrespected, he is being this and that and the third and all of that. So that's what happens. That's what happens to the black man, right? And if you don't know yourself, and if you don't understand, going back to your first question, if you don't understand your own pain points, if you don't understand your own pain points, if you don't understand your own triggers, if you don't understand your own dis-ease, your own disease, and what makes you click, right? Then you are essentially a walking time bomb. You're a walking time bomb. And I don't care where you're walking. You could be walking in the movie theater, you could be driving, or you could be walking into the kitchen, in the living room. Anybody can get it at any time.
And to be clear, you mentioned Philadelphia because that's where you're going to be speaking, and that's Masjid
Yes.
Allah had posted something. You're not saying, because I'm looking at some of the comments here, you're not saying this is the problem with the brothers in Philly as a whole.
No,
You're
I'm
talking
not
about the
saying. I mean,
ones who
come
saw your comment about you
on.
coming to Philly. Okay, so I
These
don't
are
know those.
specific.
I haven't.
These are specific examples
Right.
in a specific situation that I am referring to right now.
Right.
I just said, so those of you online, stop cherry picking again. Okay, try not to have that knee-jerk reaction. Listen
You know what?
intelligently, please.
Yeah, there's another. I referenced one sister. There's another sister who I like. And she posted something. This was like yesterday, day before yesterday. But she talked. And I'm going to misquote her now. But she did point out a phenomenon with males, and basically the men are not staying on argument. They're not staying on subject. They're just arguing in their comments. And I'm guessing they're doing this with her. But it struck me when I read that from her, because I see that a lot with stuff that I put out. Like, I've noticed that, like, we grew up being told that men were rational, women were emotional. We used to even joke about, like, my mother, like, as kids, like, your mother, you know how it is with your mother or your wife. You say, well, I don't like this tuna. It's like, what, you think my cooking is terrible? You're like, no, I just don't like this tuna. Like, it's like this classic.
Right.
But as of late, like in the past 5 years to a decade, I see that behavior being displayed more and more with males. I didn't get that with my grandfather and those guys. Those guys kind of stayed on focus. But
Yeah,
I don't know
because
if
of
it's
the online phenomenon. Because of the online phenomenon. I mean, the online phenomenon has pre-programmed us to be hypersensitive.
yeah.
So we've got a hypersensitive man out here today. And I mean, just a hypersensitive guy.
Yeah.
Like, brother, just calm down. Like, why are you taking things so personally? And interestingly, brother, you don't do that on your job. You don't do that with your employer.
So really quick,
you do that with the people. You do that with the people who love you, because you are challenging the people who love you, but you know when to stop. So just stop.
So that's what I was actually going to say, because this conversation and how if I'm hearing you correctly, you're speaking about the African American experience. We've been through some things, and we have certain pain points. And as African American men in particular, we carry certain stress, and it puts us, like, and I know this is just true, like growing up, like walking down the street. I remember just as a person going to the store, you have to be hard. Like, you have to have a certain walk, you have to have a certain grill. You just have to carry yourself a certain way, because we're in the concrete jungle.
We even name it. We call it mean mugging.
We mean mug. You know what I mean? Ice grill. So we depend.
Yeah.
So this becomes our way. And in black culture, but black male, inner city at least, it's all about not being like, you can't be punked. You have to be the toughest. You have to. So we learn to express ourselves physically. We learn to raise our voice. We definitely don't talk through anything. Now, all of that considered, we become Muslim, we get into marriages, but we've been formed this way. Now, what's interesting about what you just said about on the job, etc., because as you were talking, I was thinking about this classic conversation between Nikki Giovanni and James Baldwin. They like clipped it. It was a clip going around for a while.
Yes.
They were having this conversation. They were literally talking about the same thing. I don't know the exact year, but they were talking about the same thing. She's telling him, I remember, she's like, but you must, like she's saying, you fake on the job with that white man, but you come home and I get the brunt of it.
Yes.
So
I've seen that. I've seen that a couple of times. Yeah.
So that's what I'm hearing from you. Even in your research with African American Muslims, you're still seeing the same thing.
Yes, and we code switch, just like Nikki Giovanni was telling James Baldwin. You code switch on your job. You code switch. You code switch when you're talking to the white board members. You code switch. But when you are talking to me, you don't even want to call me Dr. Yusuf Malik. You just want to call me by any old name. Right? You understand? Because you have the feeling of, you know, you can disrespect me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You just feel like you can disrespect me. And some of it, Imam, is not even consciously. That's the interesting thing. And that's what I keep coming back to. The body keeps score. It is a trauma response that is not even a cognitive response. Like a lot of times, brothers are not even thinking about, I'm going to respond this way or I'm going to respond that way. They just respond.
Yeah.
Right. And that's just what happens. And so that's why we need to have the conversation so that we can understand what this is all about, what the spiritual abuse and the combination. Again, this is about not just trauma, it's about compounded trauma, compound trauma. You coming into your baseline is the racial trauma. Now you layer on top of that Islamophobia. You layer on top of that the spiritual abuse trauma. You layer those things on top of that. Now you have compound trauma, and as the book says, it is because you have what Kimberly Crenshaw calls intersectionality. Okay, you have the intersectionality between race and religion. And that intersectionality creates a compounded layer that causes mental health or psychological distress on African American Muslims. And as a result of that, you have a series of things going on. Number one, shame, internalized unworthiness, mistrust, betrayal, anxiety, hypervigilance, isolation, withdrawal, suicidal ideation. You know, I interviewed people who attempted suicide because of this stress in the home. I interviewed Muslims who their only salvation, in their opinion, was withdrawal or isolation. You know, I'm not going there anymore. I'm not going there anymore. Okay. Some sisters feeling shame because they done been married 3 times already. Okay. And they're not 25 yet. Right. And they're feeling shame. Right. Some brothers feeling shame as a result of that. And when it comes to the brothers, I met brothers that's been married 12 times. 12 times.
Yeah, I've never.
A period in a small period of time frame.
Yeah.
Right? You understand? And with a lot of those marriages, there's the trail of destruction that is left behind.
Right.
There's children, there's broken hearts, there's all kinds of mayhem. Right? And so these are the ills that we need three levels of healing for.
So I was gonna before you transition there, and forgive me for interrupting, but I think that just before, because I want to go into the solution piece, and I
Yes,
think that you made it clear at the outset. I don't want to restate because I brought this up last time as well. I don't think that this is, and I think you made note. Look, you study people all across the country,
right.
and I know for a fact. So it's very easy for us to say, "Oh, that's the Salafis." Oh, that's them brothers in Philly and Jersey doing that. But I don't think that
Right.
that's true. Like these same stories I've heard in Detroit, in Chicago, and Atlanta, where there's a huge Sufi group. It seems to be where
For
black
sure.
people are, just like that common history that we share. And it seems, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying that African American Muslims, no matter what type of strand they receive, if their education is not being utilized, or if they to fix things from the inside out, or if they haven't reconciled with issues that are in the inside, when they get the religion, oftentimes the religion is used as a means for spiritual abuse, or it's misused, and spiritual abuse is the result. So it doesn't really matter what like if you come up in a Salafi community, if you come up in a Sufi community, if you come up in any Imam Muhammad community, it doesn't really matter, because you're dealing with the psycho. Let me look at the psycho-sociological condition, which we all share.
Yes, correct. Absolutely correct. There is just one nuance,
Okay.
and maybe this is for a third show. But there are some communities, one or two communities, where I found it's more prevalent than others. But your statement is generally correct.
Yeah, because in my theories, and I'm not like you said, it's for another show. One of the theories that I mentioned this in the past, the the Eastern Seaboard is just more popular, which is more people. It's more black
Yes,
Muslims there.
yes, of
So it
course,
could just
yes,
be that matter, because I'm aware of some Sufi, like these guys are coming from Africa teaching, and it's like,
yes.
give your daughter to the sheikh and bake his cornbread and kiss his feet. So come on now, and these the West African
Listen, the
holy rollers.
Pakistanis, the Indian, the foreign communities. I mean, there are women marrying their rapists.
SubhanAllah.
They're being forced
Hmm.
to marry their abuser. There is all kinds of stuff going on that even I couldn't believe that
Yeah.
this stuff was happening. Like I said, it'll make the African American community problems feel like child's play.
So I'm an African American male. I grew up in Chicago. I did 3 years for something. I accepted Islam. I want to build. I don't know these things about my psychological makeup. All I know is, I mean, and that's a credit to all of these Muslim groups. They have something in them that's good, because they want to be Muslim. Like we have
Right?
to, you know what I mean? Like that's like as a point of departure. So there's good there. But as
Yes.
a Muslim, not aware of these things inside of me, I'm with my wife, and this type of behavior comes out. What do we do? How do we fix this? How do we address this?
By first of all, recognizing that it's there,
Mm,
right? Recognizing that there is, from an Islamic psychological perspective, being able to look at nafs amama, okay, being able to look at the nafs and to understand the three stages of the nafs, and understand that, hey, there is some repair that needs to be done based on where we are coming from. Okay. And do not assume that I am okay, even though you may be. And here's what I mean by that.
mm,
The trauma statistics say that 30% of people who experience the same event will leave traumatized. 2/3 of those people, the event will have had no effect on them. But 1/3 of the people, it would affect in a way that becomes overwhelming. So in other words, if you have 10 people that experience the death of a significant family member, 3 of those people are going to have a traumatic response to death going forward.
Yeah.
If you have 3 brothers in the same home that experienced a bad divorce between the parents, one of those 3 are going to have a very visceral response to relationships going forward based on an adverse childhood experience. Okay, so
Yeah.
those are the statistics. So this does not mean that everyone has been traumatized, but it means that 3 out of 10, 1 out of every 3 need to check themselves to see where you stand in that analysis. I mean, you may very well be fine, but if you have certain behavior, or you have been told about certain behavior, or you know yourself, you know that you just fly off the handle. You know that you tense up, that your jaw clenches up. You know the thoughts that goes through your head during a conflict. You understand, know thyself, right? If it recognize your pain point, that's the first thing. And if
So
you recognize,
can I interject
yes,
really
go ahead.
quickly?
Yes.
I think that is the difficult point. I'm this guy. I grew up. This is how I came up. How do I even begin that process? Like, if I'm this guy asking you right now and you're telling me what you're saying, that's one thing. But what about the brother that's just he doesn't go to the Black Crescent Wellness Foundation website. He's just a brother.
Yeah, well, let me tell that brother something. Alhamdulillah, you found Islam. Okay. Alhamdulillah, you found Islam. But your Islamic journey is about transformation. The purpose of your Islamic journey is so that you can become your best self.
Mhm.
It's not so that you can learn Arabic. Okay. It's not so that you can just get all this information and just now you've got a new creed and you've got some new information and you're walking around with your head held high. That is not what Islam is meant to do. Every Sahaba, every of the ones who were with our blessed Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all of them had a transformative experience, including the Prophet himself, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet's heart was washed. Some say 3 times, some say 4 times. But everyone says that before he had a major encounter with his Lord, from the time he was 4 to the time he was 10, to the time before the Isra Miraj, before he ascended into the heaven to meet with his Lord, in every experience, he had a transformation, a heart washing. Mm-hmm. Okay. Our journey is a transformative journey. And if you are a Muslim and you have accepted this deen, then this deen has to have space to transform your current self into your best self. This is the journey. This is why we read Quran. This is why we wake up in the night for Qiyamullah. This is why we pray during the Tahraweeh, during the month of Ramadan. This is why we dhikr and we remember Allah always and constantly. This is why we do these things. These rituals are not for notches on our belts. Mm-hmm. These rituals are transformative. This is why we keep the name of Allah on our tongues. And we mention his 99 names and attributes on our tongues. And we allow the names of Allah to transform who we are. This is about transformation, Aki. And if you are missing the transformation, you are missing the point. You are missing the religion. You're missing it. And so, y'all, what I'm saying to you, Aki, to that brother out there, is that this journey is about personal transformation. You have to go deeper than the Shahada. You have to go deeper than learning the Salah. You have to be able to reach Ihsan, where you are praying as if you are seeing your Lord, although you see him not, but knowing that he sees you. And in your behavior, this Ihsan should be able to transform our nafs from nafs amara to nafs luwama to nafs mutmaina, so that we can have that sakina, that peace, and that perfected nafs that we need as Muslims. This is our journey. And if you are not on that journey, you can call yourself what you want to call yourself. You can say, I'm Maliki, I'm Sufi, I'm Shafi, I'm NOI. You can go through the alphabet. You can call yourself whatever you want to call yourself. Right? If you, at the end of the day, are not a transformed person, then you better go back to the well.
So let me add this then, because you reference Malcolm, and Malcolm, like all of us, we have this spiritual urge, we have this spiritual direction where we want to reach our Lord. He joined the Nation of Islam. He was able to go through a transformation. He went through higher transformation after he left. So how I hear that is, just as there are, again, going back to what you pointed out, there are sociological conditions that have a psychological effect. This is like the Black experience in general. Sociological conditions historically made us this way psychologically. There's another social environment, Nation of Islam, that has a reforming effect on the psychology of one Malcolm. Meaning then, there seems to be a very important place for leadership and institutions to help in this process that you just said, because you just said that
Amen.
Guy is not going to come
up make me go back to my Christian roots and shout hallelujah and amen, because you're preaching now.
So, because I want you to, like, if a young man, like that young man that I made up, is listening to you, he can say, okay, he's right, such and such, such and such. But all of these young men, all of us, brother just called me Unc, and I've never been called Unc until I read this comment, my brother. So I guess I'm gonna say younger and young men.
I get called Unc all the time.
So what role does do the masjids play in helping these young brothers, these young sisters, who I say again as a point of departure. Look, and you know this, doctor. I mean, I remember my wife, she said one time, you know, I think I mentioned this before. She's in the Tarawih Salat line, and the sister smelling like weed, and
Sure.
they want to be Muslim. So they're good, but they're coming with whatever they're coming with. And it's like, and I'm using that as an example, is that you know how it is in our masjids, we get them raw. And but this idea of of the fact that this person, we're getting them raw, but we want to bring them along the path. What's the importance of the masjid as an institution, or the community in and of itself, to help further this process along?
Brother, I pray to Allah that He will lift your rank and that He will give you a bigger platform because you are just so good at what you do. I mean, your funnel in this discussion, to funnel this into that segue, was just masterful and so necessary. Because this is the second thing that we must do. We must pray to Allah for the transformation on a personal level, but then we must do the work on a community and institutional level. And from a community standpoint, we need to strengthen our community support networks that combines spiritual reclamation with rebuilding connections and resilience. When we give this mythical brother you've mentioned, when we give him the Shahada, we have got to set him up so he can win. We have got to either give him a network, a buddy system, a pal, a Sahaba, like they just started doing at Masjid al-Haq. Where we talked about that, and they call it some really swanky, urban, fancy name. I mean, Mustafa Brent there, the Imam, he's just real good with that branding. He called it some name, I don't remember now. But I call it the buddy system, where you give that new Sahaba, that new Shahada, a Sahaba, so that we build support networks, where we create institutional reform and accountability, because our institutions are getting to the point where, according to many people I interview, they felt betrayed by the institution. So that same sister in my wild example, who was going through all this with the Muslim brother, she goes to the institution, she goes to the masjid, complains to the imam. The imam tells her, just be patient, sister. What you are experiencing is a trial from Allah. And she says to him, it felt more like a punch in the mouth. So now he is engaging in what is called epistemic injustice, because he is silencing her pain, her real pain, and is reframing it in religious clothing. So now a punch in the face is not abuse, it's a trial. So she needs to be patient. Okay. And so there is institutional betrayal. And where that happens, institutions need to have institutional courage. They need to create safe spaces for processing individuals who are experiencing spiritual abuse. They need to create peer groups, individually centered validation groups that tells people, we hear you, We believe you, and we are here to help you navigate through this experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked with one imam at that same African American Islamic Summit. I won't call his name, but I'll just say he's from Jersey. And he told me, he said, listen, that don't happen in my masjid anymore, because I have a history of taking brothers down in the basement with about 4 other brothers, and having a good talk with them, and dealing with them when they do that to sisters.
Right.
You understand?
Oh yeah.
Obviously, he came from back there in those times.
Yeah.
He says, I can't tell you how many times. This is a respected imam in Jersey. Yeah. He said, I can't tell you how many times they've called the police on me. Right. Men in my masjid. He says, but now my masjid is free of that.
Yeah.
He says, and what happened is they go to other masjids in the area and get married and do whatever they got to do, because this masjid or that masjid or that masjid don't know that they are a serial abuser. Right. And so masjids have got to create safe spaces. And all these brothers online that's talking about me, why don't you all get together in your local masjid and create a group of accountability for men that you know is out of pocket? Talk to them guys. Talk to them guys. Have some man-to-man, brother-to-brother conversation. Clean up your community. Right? Get with the youth and try to engage in programs with the youth that will give them a rites of passage so they can learn how to be young men and learn their own identity as an African-American Muslim man, not some Arab clone, right? But an African-American Muslim man in his society that is actively engaged civically, economically, spiritually, and institutionally, and with his family. Be an example, right? Stop all this online back and forth and do something with yourselves. That's for real. That is concrete. That is tangible. Right? Be the change you want to see. And stop assuming none of this is happening. I'm not seeing it. So what? Just because you're not seeing it, it's not happening? Who are you? You're not Allah. You don't see and hear all. Right?
Right.
Right. This is what over 300 Muslims have told me what the results of this research is. And we need to address it head on. And we need to, from an institutional perspective, we need to create these paradigms so that there can be institutional accountability, institutional safe spaces, institutional reactions for these incidents, even have external committees when it gets real serious, because some of this stuff goes into criminal activity. Right? And then for the therapist in the community, okay, create, because this book speaks to clinicians and therapists as well. There are implications in the book for therapists and clinicians, because westernized therapy does not teach or does not equip our therapist for this type of trauma-informed response. Number one, when I looked at the research, as I told you at the top of the show, that there is no current model, there is no current therapy model that deals with trauma-informed therapy for the intersection of racialized trauma and spiritual abuse. None. Okay. And so we need to be able to organize and form some trauma-informed therapeutic frameworks,
right,
that can address these situations, because a sister comes to you for therapy, right? And they are telling you that they have problems at home and they're not getting along with their husbands and blah, 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 blah. If you are not culturally attuned, and if you don't possess the cultural humility that you know about spiritual abuse, you're going to misdiagnose that sister. That sister who was suicidal, she's taking therapy. A lot of the brother and sisters I talk to are currently in therapy. And maybe one or two was with Muslim therapists. But even the Muslim therapist is not a Muslim therapist. They are therapists that are Muslim.
right.
They are not applying prophetic, holistic, therapeutic approaches and looking at spiritual abuse as a possible root cause of what's going on in order to diagnose, but rather they are diagnosing based on some other paradigm that they're using, maybe cognitive behavioral therapy or some other therapeutic approach that endangers their client for re-traumatization.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so one of the things that I do, or I am equipped to do, is train therapists and train clinicians as well in terms of trauma-informed therapy and trauma-informed care models. And so we haven't gotten into that yet as we roll out our approaches and programs, but that is an essential part of our program in terms of bringing our therapists up to speed so that the community has an extra source other than the personal work that they have to do, the institutional work that needs to be done. Some people just need therapy, and they need to be referred to the right external resources that is equipped to help them.
So, doctor, this is really good. I know we're always pressed for time, and I mean, in a subject such as this, obviously it's a book. It could be turned into a full-blown course at a high level. Like you said, this gets into actual training people, meaning that we can't cover everything.
Right.
So it always feels at the end, towards the end, or at the end of these conversations, there's so much more that we didn't get to than what we've already covered.
Yes.
I do want to ask, do you mind taking some questions? I know we have a very active chat. And for the next maybe for the next 15 minutes or so, we want to do that and give people an opportunity to put some questions towards you, and then we'll go from there. So let me see here. Let me pull something up. And if you all have some, you can obviously just put them in the chat. We'll try our best to get to them. I know how it goes. We won't be able to take all of them, but inshallah, the questions that are put forth will be beneficial to everyone. So here is one here. It says, Assalamu alaikum. How do Black Muslims cope in foreign masjids where we deal with racism and many more issues that really take a toll on you mentally. And I'm going to step right
Listen,
in. I'm going to step here. I'll be right back, but you can go ahead, Doc.
what a question. That question is addressed in my book because, believe it or not, that is one of the forms of racial trauma that occurs with African American Muslims. It is referred to as intra-religious trauma, not inter, but intra, from within. And so, look, my wife has experienced it. I have experienced it, where you go to these foreign masjids, nobody salams you, even though you are salaming, they don't salam you back. And it goes to the whole thing about if you are not of the Arab or maybe Pakistani or some other cultural mix, you are not fully Muslim. A lot of the brothers that I interviewed had that experience as well. And so, look, the only way for you to cope with those kinds of things is to be compassionate and give those of your brothers and sisters, give them your compassion, because let me tell you something. One of the issues is ignorance in terms of not only ours, but theirs as well, because they are unaware of the rich African history of Islam and the hundreds of African Sahabas that exist. Not just Bilal and not just Sahabas who were slaves and all of this, but when you recognize that the first masjid in Islam was in Africa, in Abyssinia, before Cuba, before Medina, okay? Because remember, the first hijrah was Abyssinia, to present day Ethiopia. And in fact, at least one of those masjids, the remnants of that masjid, is still in existence today. And there were entire tribes, African tribes, even the Prophet ﷺ's daughter Ruqiyya and her husband, Uthman ibn Affan, they traveled to Africa in the second hijrah, right before Medina, and were there with that African Muslim ummah. And so a lot of these foreign masjids assume that we are Johnny-come-lately Muslims, and their deen is more authentic than ours and all of this nonsense. But knowing yourself, knowing your Islamic history, knowing your deen, I tell people all the time, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was my prophet. Okay, he came to me, right? And so he is not some foreign prophet that doesn't apply to me. So knowing that, I think, will take some of the edge off of you mentally. But I'm so glad. Thank you for that question, because that issue is part of the racialized trauma that we talk about in the book and in my research. But as Imam Rashad says, we can't talk about everything on this show. And sometimes I feel like the audience gets shortchanged, but we are doing the best we can with the time we have.
So there's another one here. I don't know if she was asking this rhetorically. I'm assuming this is she, but I like it. It says another thing we need is mission for our communities. What goal do we have for our communities? And I'm going to take the liberty to kind of rephrase this. From your research, engaging different leaders, communities, do you sense? I mean, even going back to the Malcolm thing, and this nation of Islam, and these people had this way. There was this general vision. I mean, the old timers even tell us today we were building a nation. We felt that we were going somewhere. Those who even came out of the civil rights movement, the Black Panther Party era, they felt like there was a goal in mind, and that is what gave direction to their work. Do you find that African American Muslim communities today, collectively and at the individual level, have a sense of goal or purpose that directs them in their Islamic life?
No, and that is our shortcoming. Our
Mm.
shortcoming is that we as an ummah, we need to take accountability for helping our leaders and helping them to consolidate their vision of where our community go, because our community is us.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, some of these leaders we have are short-sighted. You know, there's a text in the Bible that says, without a vision, the people perish.
Yeah.
And that stands true today. Without a vision, the people perish. And this is why our communities are not supported. We have very few on the Eastern Seaboard, talking about the Eastern Seaboard. We have listen, man, every foreign community that comes in our community, you turn around, they building a masjid from the ground up.
Yeah, they jump.
Boom, you look around, they big minaret and big, crescent and all of this.
Yeah, schools.
And we've been in the community for years, for decades. This is our community, and we're in a storefront.
Yeah.
Right? We're in a rented building. Right? And everybody's happy. And guess what? Guess what? That building is only used on Friday, or mostly used on Friday for Jummah. And we come and listen, before the announcements, we are trying to get out of there like like the building is on fire. Right? And so we don't have a sense as African Americans what the masjid is for. And this is the biggest difference between us and these foreign communities. And I've been a part of foreign communities where my family and I lived. And let me tell you, every single day there's activity in that masjid. Every day there's something going on. And on weekends, forget about it. All weekend long, there is stuff happening in the masjid. Stuff happening in the masjid. There's women's meetings, there's kids, there is youth, there is this. They view the masjid as the masjid was intended by our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a community center. And the reason we don't support our masjids, we just give $1. There was some research done by one of the imams in New Jersey again, and he reported on this is not empirical research, this is his own research based on his observations, okay, and his inquiry. Every masjid, African-American masjid he went to, he asked the imam, how much money did you collect at Jummah, and how many people he estimates was at Jummah, and he did the math. And he did this over a period of years. And at the end, when he tabulated it all, he recognized that the African-American member only gives an average of $1 per person per masjid. I think it was like $1.25, something like that. We can't build anything on $1.25, brother. We can't build anything, sister, with $1.25 from every person, right? Where your heart is where your money is going to be. Our hearts need to be more connected to the masjid. Our hearts need to be more connected to our community, and our communities need to represent more than a Friday Juma.
And how I hear that, and I'm saying this with the awareness of the caution of being broad brushed. But if my masjid is the masjid where the imam says your busted lip is a test from Allah, you'd be lucky if you get $1 from me. So there has to be some type of interconnectedness between these things.
Yes, between the message and the masjid, right? The message and the masjid needs to be united, and the masjid needs to be exactly what it was 1400 years ago. It needs to be a sanctuary. And the word sanctuary means safe place. Right? All of Mecca is a sanctuary for the Muslim, right? And our masjids need to become sanctuaries, sanctuaries for children, sanctuaries for women, sanctuaries for young men. A young man should never have to fear that there will be a shooting at the Eid,
right?
As there have been in several cities. And you know who you are. Right? A masjid should never, a young man should never feel that the brother he's praying next to is packing heat. Because he is in the sanctuary. The sanctuary is a safe place. And it's up to the masjid administration to make sure, to ensure that they are providing a safe space, a sanctuary for the believers and for the worshipers, and to make sure that that is more than just a once a week gathering place. And every now and then you have an Arabic lesson here and there. There's so much more that the community needs than to learn Aleph Ba Ta, or just to come to Juma, right? There's all kinds of stuff that needs to be going on in the masajid.
So I have one more question, Doctor, and then we'll wrap it up because we're reaching the two hour mark. So we did a little marathon today. Well, it's not a marathon. We did cover some miles, and this is another good one. How can a husband and wife help each other to cope with stressors to keep the family together?
Got to recognize the pain points. I have a survey that I've developed that if you send a request to the imam on this show and just send him the word survey and leave your email, I will ask him to send it to me, and I will send you a survey that you and your husband can do to uncover or discover some of your stresses that will allow you to uncover it and have a discussion around your kitchen table about your stresses and about how to approach it and how to go forward with it, and healing and repair mechanisms. I developed this several months ago, and it works really well. Several people have used it across the country, and I've gotten really positive feedback from this psycho-spiritual survey. It's something that you and your spouse can do together. You answer the questions each one of you individually, you compare answers, you talk about it, etc. Yes.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. So we appreciate you, doctor. Um, so much that we cover. There's also so much that we don't get to cover. Because I'm going to actually do a few recordings next week, inshallah, on relationships. I do have one of our teachers, Sheikh Muhammad Al Khamis. We're going to talk about the need for the advance of Islamic knowledge. That's Monday. So I have another interview coming up, but I do want to talk more about relationships as well. And we do want to
Yeah.
have you back on this perspective, because there's a lot to be covered. And what I try to do, I was sharing this with you about we had Sheikh Abdullah bin Hamid Ali, who he's the positions that he takes politically, a lot of people don't agree with. And what I really try to do is let the person just speak, like this is their view. And it's better for us to hear their view uh than to not,
Right.
at least as a point of departure. So I really wanted to do that with when I brought you on these times, just to hear your view. I did throw some things there just to kind of move it in a certain direction, because I've heard certain responses, and I wanted to give you an opportunity to address those responses. A lot of other, I guess I would say, pushbacks I didn't put forward. Oftentimes I'm hearing this from the other men regarding like there's this phenomena where, yes, you do have these men with certain pain points. You also have a phenomena where a lot of men feel that the women are being ignored. In other words, like where they come in as a part of the problem. There is another subset of men that's kind of in the middle, like, hey, I married this woman who was the victim of abuse, but I'm not that guy. And I'm coming in and now hurt people. She's treating
Right.
me.
Yeah.
So maybe I need to go to
Yeah.
Malaysia.
He's
Like that's the whole
traumatized. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So that aspect of the conversation definitely needs to be had, and I want to have it with the caution that this is not about like shooting each other.
Yeah.
We're not doing that. But what I do know, and what I do know is that communication is just that. You share,
Yes.
I share, I
Yes.
share, you share, and there's no way
Yes.
to come to some type of conclusion and work together unless we don't hear both. We have to be able to hear both sides.
Yeah.
Um,
And the fact that it wasn't mentioned in this particular session
right,
doesn't mean that it's being ignored or it doesn't exist. I mean,
right,
we have to be able to stay on point so
right.
that we can have good communication. However, we are open to discussing where does the woman fit in, what role do they play, and how do we address some of those situations, because those points that you just brought up are real points. We are not women come, I mean, we call it baggage, right? But it's trauma. Women come to relationships with trauma, with
Mm.
baggage. And it's yeah, so those are real conversations. Those are real discussions that we need to have.
So I want to remind everyone, please go to Amazon, get the new book. I love Islam, but I'm tired of Muslims. That's the first part. There's another part. How spiritual abuse and racial trauma intersect to cause psychological distress among African American Muslims. As always, our religion is after the Millah of Ibrahim. We would advise everyone to read, to hear the points being made before forming a critique, and really engaging with the work of the good doctor over 2 years, or 2 years of research, almost close to 300 people interviewed, in an area that really you're pioneering this particular area. So we do want to make sure that the support for your work continues. We thank you for being on the channel for a second time, and we look forward to having you back to continue the conversation. One of the things that I think is good about this modern time, with platforms like YouTube and other platforms as well, we're not just depending upon one institution such as the masjid. to address problems. Like you can have your own platform, the Dr. Yusuf Frederick channel to address things, because maybe there's a masjid that doesn't, or the masjids don't even want to hear you because the imam is the one. I'm just making this up. I'm okay. So people
Yeah.
in comment, he's the one who busted the lip. So he don't want
Yeah.
you at but the world is open now in a way that it never has been open before. And we appreciate the opportunity to feature persons such as yourself in the work that you do for the benefit of the community as a whole. So may Allah increase you, reward you. And someone says, following from Senegal. Okay, that's my man. I'll be there soon, inshallah. I'm going back to Senegal. Like Biggie said, going back to Cali. I'm going back to
Going
Senegal
back to Cali.
soon, inshallah. Soon, a couple of week or so.
Inshallah.
But may Allah, inshallah, next time we'll see you all again. Our interview next week is with Sheikh Mohammed Khamis. That will be Monday. And then, of course, we have our regular recordings rolling out, inshallah. Until then, peace. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.